Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me for the Leadership Series number 1, Developing a Leadership Mindset. My name is Jackie Perkins. And as I mentioned, leadership is 80% psychology and 20% strategy. So we're going to spend this first topic really delving into how do we develop the mindset of a leader. So as Anthony Robbins said, the 11th most influential man in the world, success is 80% psychology, 20% strategy. So how do we develop that psychology? How do we develop that mindset? Now, I'm going to suggest that there are 3 things that we can do, 3 things we can focus on that are going to help us develop that mindset. The very first thing is your internal narrative, those thoughts that are running around in your head, the stories that we tell ourselves. So I've referred to them as internal narrative or stories. Are they healthy, helpful, and productive? So we're going to look at that. The second thing that we're going to focus on is your physiology. Now, when I talk about your physiology, I'm not talking about your body language. I'm not talking about whether you make eye contact or whether you smile or engage. I'm actually talking about the way you sit, the way you stand, your physiology. Is it powerful or is it actually making you lose confidence? And the third thing that we're going to look at is what you choose to focus on. So we're going to look at your circle of concern and your circle of influence. What are you choosing to focus on as a leader? And I'm going to suggest that once you've got these 3 areas under control, you're going to have developed the psychology and the strength and the confidence to be the leader that you want to be. So let's dive into the first one. The first one is around developing your internal narrative. Now, an anonymous person has written this really powerful statement. It's not what you say out of your mouth that determines your life. It's what you whisper to yourself that has the most power. So I'm going to say that again. It's not what you say out of your mouth that determines the most power or that determines your life. It's what you whisper to yourself that has the most power. So those little whisperings, those little internal stories and narratives and thoughts is what has the most control and power over your life. And I'm going to suggest that those thoughts, those stories, those internal narratives are either healthy, helpful, and productive, or unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive. So a little mantra I want you to hold on to here, is it a fact or is it a story? So I'm going to give you an example. I'm really not good with confrontation as a leader. I really fall apart when I have to deal with a performance management situation. I'm really not equipped to deal with managing a meeting where the CEO is present. Now, I have to really challenge myself here and say, is that an absolute fact? Or is that my own internal narrative? Is that a story that I'm telling myself? And this often links into the imposter syndrome. If you go and Google the imposter syndrome, you will find that many successful people actually suffer from it. And it's where we tell ourselves that we're not good enough, that we aren't enough, that people are going to discover one day that actually we don't know what we're talking about. So this is where we really have to challenge ourselves and say, is that just a story in my head, or is that an absolute fact? So for me, I can say it's an absolute fact that I might not have certain IT skills, but it would be a lie to say I don't have the capability or the resources or the intelligence to learn those skills. So I want us to really challenge our thinking. Is it healthy, helpful, and productive? So there are 3 types of stories we tell ourselves. The first story we tell ourselves is about ourselves. So that story can be, I actually feel really confident as a leader. I put my points across really well. I really can engage people. I can motivate people. Or it could be, people don't take me seriously. They don't listen to me. They don't engage with me. They think I'm talking nonsense. They'll never do anything I tell them. So one of those narratives is really going to be healthy, helpful, and productive, and the other is going to be really unhealthy and unhelpful and unproductive. The second type of story we tell ourselves is about others. So the others could be the team that report to you. Others could be your manager, your leadership team. Others could be your clients or your customers. Others could be people from other departments. So again, I can tell myself healthy, helpful, productive stories about them, like, I know that team really wants to engage and work with us. I really believe that my manager wants to hear what I have to say. I'm absolutely convinced that the client wants to collaborate and find the best solution. Or I can tell myself some unhealthy stories about others and go, those clients are never going to engage. My manager's never going to sit and listen to me seriously. That department never comes to the party. They're always throwing rocks in the road. So those would be some unhelpful stories about others. And the third story that we tell ourselves is about the situation. So some examples of unhealthy stories about the situation could be, this industry's finished, dead. It's never going to recover. Oh, we're going into a recession. There's no hope for us. This company is so antiquated and archaic, they'll never, ever introduce any changes. This new CRM system they've just implemented is clunky and it's never, ever going to work. So unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive stories about the situation. Or I could tell myself some healthy stories about it and go, you know what? I'm so glad we work for an organization that is actually introducing some change, because we need to get up to date with some of the latest technology. Or I'm absolutely convinced that if I had to sit down and really research this industry, I could come to grips with why some of these new policies and procedures are being put in place. So what is a healthy story about the situation? Or yes, right now times are really tough and we've got a lot of change going on and a lot of uncertainty. What can I learn from this experience? What has been helpful about this experience? What is right with this picture right now? And you'll always find that there's some amazing opportunities for learning and for insight and for development in any situation. So it's asking ourselves, what's right with this picture instead of what's always wrong with this picture? So I'm going to suggest that we choose our thoughts like we choose our clothes. Now, I stole that little phrase from a beautiful book by an author by the name of Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote a biography about herself when she went through a very messy divorce. She went away to India, and when she was with one of her gurus, he said, Elizabeth, you choose your thoughts like you choose your clothes. Now, I want you to consider this. When you get up in the morning and you go into your closet to dress yourself, do your clothes just jump off the hangers and dress you? Or do you specifically choose items of clothes and put them on? Now, I'm going to suggest you actually choose them and put them on. Unless you're like Steve Jobs, who apparently had all his white shirts laid out and his blue jeans laid out. So he never had to think and they were just there and he could put them on. But if you're not Steve Jobs, you'd be really selecting what you're going to be wearing for the day, or if it's not a work uniform. Now, once you've put those clothes on, if you're anything like me, you'll go have a look in a mirror and you'll go, does the shirt cover my fat, wobbly arms here, so that when I stand up in front of my clients, you don't see the fat going gudwang, 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 you know, those tuck shop arms. Does it cover this? And then I'd look in front of the mirror and go, oh, is it loose enough over my stomach so you don't see this nice big fat bulging tummy underneath? And then I'd be going, oh, does it cover my hips so you don't see my nice squelchy childbearing hips? And then I'd be looking down at my pants or my skirt and going, does it cover my knees? And can I make sure no one can see my cellulite on my knees? And if it covers all these little checkpoints, I go, da-da, ready for action. I'm now ready to go and present or see my clients or run that meeting or whatever it is. But if I stand in front of that mirror and I go, oh, no, not looking so good, I take those clothes off, I hang them back up, I put them in the closet, and I re-pick them, and I keep on putting them on and off until I go tick, tick, tick. Yep, I'm ready for action. Now, that's what I want you to be thinking about with your thoughts. If you need to go and run a a stressful meeting, if you need to go and have a performance management review, if you need to go and give some difficult feedback, if you need to go and do a presentation, if you need to go and recruit, whatever you need to go and do as a leader, present to the board, I want you to really challenge what is your internal narrative about yourself, about the other party, and about the situation. And then I want you to ask yourself, is it healthy? Is it helpful? And is it productive? And if it's not, I want you to reframe it and challenge yourself until you only have healthy, helpful, and productive thoughts until you go, "Gada, I'm ready for action." Now, I'm going to share why this is so important with you. I'm going to draw you a little step-by-step ladder of what happens when we have these unhelpful thoughts and how they actually impact our emotional state, the decisions we make, which then impact the action that we take, which ultimately has an impact on the outcome. And it all starts with the stories we tell ourselves. So get yourself something to write with, and let's jot down a couple of notes. Our internal narrative has a huge impact on the outcome of events. Now, what do I mean by that? So, hopefully you've got something to jot down these thoughts with. What I'd like you to do is to create yourself a ladder. So the first step of the ladder, you're going to write the word event. Now, the event could be anything. The event could be that you have to go and manage a performance management discussion. It could be that you have to restructure a department. It could be that you have to introduce a new CRM system. It could be any number of things. Now, with this event, we tell ourselves a story. So this is your internal narrative. Now, remember, we mentioned that this story can be healthy, it can be helpful, and it can be productive. But in as much as it can be healthy, helpful, and productive, it can also be unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive. That story then creates an emotional state. Now, let us just take an event for an example. Let's say that I'm going to go and talk to my team about a new CRM system that we're about to introduce. And I tell myself a story. They're going to hate it. They're going to see it as a waste of time. They're going to say they don't have time to learn it. They're going to say that it's going to slow them up and it's going to impact on their ability to hit their KPIs and their targets. And I've told myself all these unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive stories. What emotions do you think I'm going to start feeling? I'm going to start feeling maybe anxious. I'm maybe going to start feeling a little bit frustrated. I'm going to start feeling maybe a little bit angry. I'm going to maybe start feeling a little bit apprehensive. All of those emotions I've just spoken about, again, are going to be unhealthy, unhelpful, and unproductive. And in turn, that emotional state is going to impact on the decisions that I make. And those decisions are going to impact on my behavior or my actions, as you might call them. So my decisions will impact on my behavior or my actions. And finally, that behavior is going to have an impact on, you've guessed it, the outcome. So let's just talk this through. I've got to introduce a CRM system. I tell myself that they're going to hate it, they're going to find it clunky, they're not going to pay attention, there's going to be a huge amount of resistance. I start to feel anxious, worried, overwhelmed, annoyed, perturbed, tentative. I then maybe decide that I'll just send out an email telling everyone that they just need to look at the information before they come to the meeting, and if they've got any questions, they can raise them at the meeting. And I don't really try to motivate them or engage them or tell them the why we're doing it. And in the meeting, maybe I really go in there a little bit defensive, a little bit, dictatorial, that because I'm expecting some pushback. So going back a little bit, maybe heavy-handed, and this is what's happening, and this, you just need to comply, and you just need to get on with it, and we don't have a choice in this. And the outcome, I get a lot of pushback and a lot of resistance, or I just get complete and utter disengagement. And I go, you see, I told you, I knew this was going to happen. But actually, it wasn't the event that created that outcome. It was, in fact, the story I told myself that created the outcome. So the moral of this story is to ask ourselves, what story am I telling myself about the event? Do I need to introduce a restructure? Do I need to introduce a new policy or procedure? Do I need to roll out a new CRM system? Do I need to go into performance management structure? And asking myself, what story am I telling myself about this event before I actually go and put any strategies or action in place? Because that story is going to create my emotional state. My emotional state is going to influence my decisions, and my decisions is going to influence my behavior, both my spoken and my non-verbal behavior. And while we're on the topic, just remember, your non-verbals are 93% of your communication. So even if you think you're saying the perfect words, if your internal narrative is unhealthy and unproductive, your non-verbals are giving you away every step of the way, and that is 93% of the message you're conveying. And that in turn determines the outcome. So if we want to get a successful outcome, the first place we have to start is with our internal narrative. As a leader, what is your internal narrative? Is it healthy? Is it helpful? Is it productive? So as a nice little bonus, I'm just going to give you a brilliant little acronym that I've picked up along the way. If we're talking about unhealthy emotional states such as fear, a little acronym that I have found incredibly helpful. What does fear stand for? False evidence appearing as real. False evidence appearing as real. So what I'd like you to think about is when you hear that little internal narrative, when you have those thoughts in your head and it starts to create some fearful, anxious, emotional states, challenge yourself. Is this actually a fact or a story? And is that story healthy, helpful, and productive? And as I often say, just for a little bit of fun, if you're going to tell yourself a story, make sure it's a good one. Alrighty, so that's our internal narrative. The second thing we spoke about helping us develop the mindset of a successful leader is our physiology. In fact, just before we get to that, I'm going to run a little exercise with you that really is going to crystallize this for you. So I'm going to ask you to imagine that you have just received an email in your inbox. And all that this email says is that your organization is intending on doing some major changes. That's it. You've got no other information but that. Now, I'm going to get you to come up with 4 different internal narratives, 4 different stories. The first story you're going to come up with in response to that email is going to leave you feeling enthusiastic. So what story would you tell yourself that would leave you feeling enthusiastic to that little email? We're looking at making some major changes. So story might be fantastic. Maybe I'm going to get an opportunity to apply for that new role in a different department I've always wanted to. Awesome. At long last, maybe we're going to get some opportunities to work on projects that we haven't had a chance to work on before. Or maybe we'll be getting some fresh new blood into the organization, or maybe we'll be letting go some of the dead wood. So there could be any number of stories in response to that email that leaves you feeling enthusiastic. Now, the second emotional state that I want you to think about is the story you tell yourself is going to leave you feeling relieved. So what story would you tell yourself in response to that exact same email? We're looking at making some major changes. You don't know anything more. But when you read it, the story you tell yourself leaves you feeling relieved. So perhaps it could be, at long last they're doing something. We've been needing some change around here. This is fantastic. This is an opportunity to become more efficient, more effective. Now the third one is, it leaves you feeling worried. So what story might you have told yourself in response to that exact same email? We're looking at making some major changes that leaves you feeling worried. It could be, oh my God, I hope I get to keep my job. Or if they move me to a different team, will I like that team or will they like me? Or if they get me to take on a new role, will I be competent in that new role? And the fourth emotional state is leaving you feeling frustrated. So what story would you tell yourself that would leave you feeling frustrated? It could be, oh my God, here we go again. Another change. Change for the sake of change. Oh, for goodness sake, nothing's even broken and they're trying to fix it again. We keep on changing. We've got change fatigue in this organization. Why do they never consult us? Why do they never discuss anything with us? So hopefully you can see that this example has demonstrated this principle. We've had the exact same event. It's one email in your inbox that has created 4 different emotional states. And those 4 different emotional states were created because we told ourselves 4 different stories in response to that exact same event. Now let's play that out. Let's play that out, how that actually impacts our behavior and the outcome. So true life story. My husband is running a branch in Toowoomba. He gets an email in his inbox. We are selling the business to a company in Sydney. They will be coming to Toowoomba to do their due diligence. We're not sure when they will be coming. Everyone receives the same email. His admin manager, who happened to be a female in her 50s, came to my hubby and said, what's going on? What's going to happen to us? And he said, I have no idea. I only know what you know. And every day she'd come and say, have you had an update? What's going on? And the same reply, I have no more information than you do. So her story inside her head was, oh my God, I'm a woman in my late 50s. I'm living in Toowoomba. It's a small town. Job opportunities are scarce. I'm nearing retirement. My chances of getting another job are really small. And it created an emotional statement of fear, anxiety. She started taking a lot of sick days. She became debilitated. And what happened was that the team from Sydney came and did their due diligence, noticed that she'd taken a lot of sick leave and went, how much time has she had off? Why has she had so much time off? And when it came to making a decision about who they retained and who they didn't retain, she wasn't one of them, with the outcome being that she then lost her job. Now, I'm not for one instance suggesting that she would have kept her job if she told herself a different story, but I am suggesting she would have been in a stronger place. So what do I mean by that? If she had said, okay, I'm in my 50s, what if this restructure means I lose my job? This is maybe the ideal time for me to start updating my resume. Maybe I need to really get onto LinkedIn. I've been threatening to do it for years and update my profile. Maybe I need to go to TAFE and do some night classes. Maybe this is an opportunity to upskill and really start developing my networking contacts. So that in the event that that did happen, her emotional state might have been a little bit more energized, enthusiastic, a little bit more confident. Her actions certainly then would have been putting her in a more powerful, strong position, so that if she did lose her job, she was in a better position to actually equip herself to find another one, rather than in a rabbit hole of feeling really down and disappointed in life. So to just recap all of that, what is your internal narrative? Every time you're faced with an event, anything you need to do as a leader, what are you telling yourself about your leadership ability, What are you telling yourself about the people you have to engage with? What are you telling yourself about the situation? Is it healthy, helpful, and productive? And if it's not, go change your clothes. Go change your thoughts until you do feel healthy, helpful, and productive thoughts, which will create a powerful emotional state of maybe enthusiasm or inspiration or confidence, which will then enable you to take behavior and actions that are productive, that will then give you an outcome that is more effective and more successful. So the second thing that we want to look at in developing this leadership mindset is our physiology. So what do I mean by physiology? This is not our non-verbals. This is about how we stand, how we sit, how we walk. Are our shoulders back? Is our back straight? Is our chin up? Or are we sagging over? Are we letting our shoulders slump in? Have we got our little head drop down? Are we sitting in a little corner and feeling a little bit defeated and a little bit depleted? Just by simply changing our physiology, something amazing happens internally to our hormonal balance. So what I'd love you to do is to have a look at the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy, Power Poses. Now, the PowerPoints are available. All you need to do is flick me an email. I will happily send you the PowerPoints, and embedded into the PowerPoints is this magnificent TED Talk by Amy Cuddy on what power poses actually do. So what she suggests is when we hold a power pose like this or like this for 2 minutes or more, our testosterone, which is our power hormone, actually elevates. Our cortisol, which is our stress hormone, actually decreases. So what we want to think about is every time I need to go and do something that I consider maybe stressful, like run a meeting, do a presentation, handle a conflict situation, deal with an angry client, I need to actually go to a bathroom and do a power pose for 2 minutes, or I need to go and stride up and down the corridor, big strides, big arm lengths and swings. I need to make sure that when I sit down in that meeting, my back is straight, my shoulders are back, my chin is up. And in that way, immediately my testosterone is going to elevate and make me feel more confident. Because if I do anything else, my testosterone is going to plummet and my cortisol, my stress hormone, is going to elevate, and it's immediately going to make me feel less confident and powerless. It's a small little tool, but an incredibly powerful tool, and I've used it in so many situations, and I really can testify to the fact that it works. Throughout your day, be thinking, oh, maybe I need to power pose. Maybe you're on the phone to a difficult client. Stand while you're talking to this client. Always think of opportunities to use your power pose. Alrighty, our third and final tool that is going to help us with our leadership mindset is what do we choose to focus on? So some of you may or may not be familiar with Stephen Covey's circle of concern, circle of influence. So if you're not, I would really encourage you to go and have a look at his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, or just simply Google circle of concern, circle of influence by Stephen Covey. But if you're watching this at the moment, what I'd like you to do is actually draw yourself 2 circles. So you're going to draw one circle within the other. So this is my circle of concern, and this is my circle of influence. Now, anything in my circle of concern is going to be things that I have no control over, things that I can do nothing about. There are things like COVID-19, things like recession, things like cancer, death, restructures. I have absolutely no control over them. And obviously the things in my circle of influence are things I believe I can change. Now what happens is the more time that we spend in this circle of concern, the bigger it gets. And the smaller the circle of influence gets until it just looks like a tiny little bicycle tire. But the more time I spend in my circle of influence, the bigger it gets, and the smaller my circle of concern gets, until it looks like a tiny little black dot. Now I want you to think about, when you're in your circle of concern, you are far more reactive. You're just reacting to what anyone else tells you what to do. You're not taking charge. You're not proactive. You're like this little ship at sea being buffeted about by the waves, and you're just going there, holy moly. Everyone's just telling me what to do, and I just have to jump and do whatever they want. And I feel out of control, and I feel powerless, and no leader wants to be in that position. But when I'm in my circle of influence, I'm actually being proactive. I'm taking charge. I'm making decisions. I'm deciding where we're going to head as a team or as a business or as a department. And I then feel far more in control and far more confident. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to challenge you to write down everything you think you believe belongs in your circle of concern, everything you believe belongs in your circle of influence. And then I'm going to actually ask you to see, is there anything you could move out of that circle of concern into your circle of influence? Now I'm going to run a little story past you that is going to touch hopefully on every element of your life where you can see what I'm talking about. So the example I'm going to give you is, let's pretend that I spend 90% of my life in my circle of concern, both in a personal and professional capacity. So I wake up in the morning and I go, holy moly, I've got to get 3 kids to school. I'm going to have to wash and iron their uniforms, pack their lunches, take something out of the freezer for dinner tonight. I've got to make sure my husband's got a clean shirt ironed for work. Get to work, I've got a boss saying, where's that proposal, Jackie? I've got a client saying, where are the feedback evaluation forms from Wednesday? And I've got a colleague say, hey, Jackie, please help me develop this workshop performance management. Then I walk in the door and I've got my youngest son saying, Mom, I need help with maths. I've got my daughter saying, I need to get to dancing. And I've got my husband saying, what's for dinner tonight? Now, if I ask you how I'm feeling right now, sitting in my circle of concern, I'm hoping you will say, I'm feeling stressed, maybe a bit resentful, maybe a bit pissed off, frustrated. But I'm very definitely feeling out of control and most definitely feeling powerless. Now, what if I said, I'm actually going to move some of those things into my circle of influence? And all of these are going to require a leadership mindset. They're all going to require me to say some healthy, helpful, and productive narratives to myself about what is my responsibility? What are my obligations? What should I be expecting from other people? What can I do? What can I not do? What should I be doing? So I'm not going to challenge every one of these situations. And I'm going to go, hey kids, I've seen those amazing projects you do at school. I figure that same clever brain can work out how to get 2 pieces of bread, a piece of cheese, and slap it between the 2 pieces of bread and shove it in a Tupperware. And husband, darling, I've seen those amazing projects you do at work, and I figure that same clever brain can work out how to get an iron and shove the plug into the socket and iron that shirt of yours. And when I get to work, I could be saying to my boss, yes, boss, I love you dearly. I absolutely am going to get that proposal to you. You ask for it by Friday. Today is Wednesday. I will have it to you by Friday. And dear client, my world revolves around you. We promise a 5-day turnaround for feedback forms. Today is number 3. I will have it to you by day number 5. And dear colleague, you mean the world to me. I really want to help you with that workshop. I'm not able to help you today. I can help you tomorrow. And I get home and I say, dear darling youngest son, you need help with maths. How about promising that if you help eldest brother helps you, in return, you'll make him coffee every morning this week. And dear daughter who needs to get to dancing, maybe if you ask your older brother to take you to dancing, in return, you'll make him lunch for a week. And while we're at it, dear darling husband, what's for dinner tonight? And now, how am I feeling? How am I feeling in my circle of influence? Hopefully you're going to say a little bit less stressed, a little bit more relaxed. But the key words I want us to think about here is hopefully I'm feeling a little bit more in control. Hopefully I'm feeling a little bit more powerful. And that's what we want to be feeling as a leader. We want to feel that we're not just reacting, but we're being proactive. We're being strategic. We're thinking ahead. So these are all things that are going to help us develop that leadership mindset. our internal narrative, our physiology, and what we choose to keep in our circle of concern, and what we choose to move into our circle of influence, so that we can proactively put steps in place to have a little bit more control over what's happening in our day-to-day lives as a leader. Now, I'm really hoping that that has been helpful to you. What I'm going to suggest is that you go and have a look at my website. Underneath the leadership tools, you will see that I've set up 3 sets of tools and resources to assist you. There are some coaching assignments, there are some coaching tools, and there are some coaching resources. Part of those coaching assignments are to help you actually take what we've just discussed today and take them away and put them into real life practical applications. So here are my coaching questions that I'm going to leave for you, and you can then go and download the PDFs on my website. So the first coaching question that I'm going to put to you is always ask yourself, is that a fact or is it a story? And if it is a story, is that story healthy, helpful, and productive for what you need to do right now? And if it's not, how could you look at it differently? How could you look at it from a perspective of making it a more productive story? My second coaching question to you is your physiology. How are you sitting? How are you standing? How are you walking? Is your physiology helping you, or is it making you feel a little bit less powerful than you should? And thirdly, what are you choosing to focus on? What can you do? What can't you do? And are there things you could possibly be doing, but you've told yourself a story that you can't? But by shifting them into your circle of influence, you could potentially start influencing some different outcomes. So I really hope you've enjoyed that series. Please jump onto my website to look at the resources and the coaching tools to support you. And if you've enjoyed that, have a look at my step 2, which is going to be all around adapting your leadership style. So you know what to do. Until next time, be bold, be curious.